Welcome to the podcast, Nathan Ruby. I'm so excited to welcome my friend and longtime client. You're the executive director of FOTCOH, Friends of the Children of Haiti. So take a moment and tell us about the work that you do at FOTCOH.
Well, first of all, Christina, thanks for having me. This is awesome. I'm really excited to be here today. Friends of the Children of Haiti is a primary healthcare provider in a small town called Savadier, Haiti. It's on the southern coast of the country, and we have been there since the early 1980s, and we provide primary healthcare. So just like going to the doctor, and also we have a surgery program, a dental program, a clean water program, a women's health program, and a really, really, really stellar pharmacy. So that's what we do. So we serve about 17,000 patient visits a year.
Amazing. And I was thinking about it in advance of this interview. I think we started working together, like our first meeting was end of 2019, I think. So that's what I'm thinking. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I would say
Okay.
that's give or take. You would know better than me. That's like ancient times ago.
Yes.
So,
And I think one of the reasons why we have worked so well together is a couple of things. You definitely have the entrepreneurial spirit. You make decisive action. You're willing to try new things as the ED of your organization. You're trusting me, bringing me in as an outside consulting and a coach. And we're going to get into how that helped to really accelerate your organization's growth today. And I know that a lot of people will naturally hear, and we'll have you back on for a separate conversation about fundraising, but you're a rock star fundraiser. And one of the things that people bring me on and they join my programs to do is I'll see this, like, it's kind of this common thread with organizations that are $500,000 to $1 million, where often, not always, but often the ED is actually kind of an amazing fundraiser. And they're not able to go do what they do well because they're doing the running of the organization. And one of the places that I feel like it's like my goal for you is to make sure that you can go fundraise, because if you can fundraise, you can have an even greater impact.
well, first of all, we have to go back a little bit. And
Yeah.
the reason that you and I work really well together is because you're extremely smart and you understand the trifecta of communications, marketing, and fundraising. And that is a left brain, right brain type.
Yeah.
Usually people that are really good at marketing and communications do not have the fundraising piece, and vice versa. And you have that. So, and I will give myself credit. I will say I am smart enough to just say, this is what we need, and then just let you figure it out. So I'll take credit for that part of letting you do what you do and that you do really well. And that I, because I don't have the communications piece, I don't have the marketing piece. So anyway, that's why we work so well together.
But you are unafraid of donor meetings. And I love it.
Oh,
I love it. You're like, put me in, coach. Put me in.
That's the only reason I do this job, is so I could go talk to. No, that's not right. You might want to edit that out. That's not right. But I do. I love, that is the best part of my day. When I have to look at a spreadsheet, it like on the budget, it literally gives me hives. But if I could go and talk on the phone with the donor, or even better, sit down at the table with them or sit down across the conference room, whatever it is, that just lights me up.
Yeah, totally. So let's talk about some wins. So we've been working together for now, it's like, oh my gosh, so long. But from where we started to why you were like, okay, we need some help, to where you are today, what's a like standout moment or a success from our work together that comes to mind?
Oh my gosh. How long is this episode? I mean, geez, the list is long. I think when I reached out to you, I knew I came in the organization in 2017, and it was a great organization doing great work. Started by a founder, typical founder story. The founders traveled to Haiti. They saw what was happening there. They said to themselves, somebody needs to do something. they looked around and they realized that it was them. They're the ones that needed to do something. So they did this, and in typical founder fashion, they had an outstanding, deep, profound passion for the people that they were serving. And that is unique among all founders. Otherwise, they wouldn't be founders. They have this driving force that is inside of them. But also, like founders, they did not have expertise in finance or in fundraising or in marketing or in this and this and this and this. But they did it the only way they knew how to do it. And that was kind of where the organization was when I came along in 2017. And I knew right off the bat, we needed a new website. We needed a communications plan. And I think that's the answer to your question. Is the biggest, most profound change we made was getting proactive and getting what's the word I want? Getting I guess we'll just say proactive. Getting proactive about putting a plan together of, this is what we're going to do. This is our strategy. These are our tactics. This is how we're going to do it. This is when we're going to do it. And then we're going to stick to that plan. And I would give us, not you, I would give me a C+ on implementing the plan. I would give the plan an A that came from Christina. And there were some bumps along the road because as an organization, we did not have the systems in place to give you what you needed to help us. And so that took a little while. But I think that was the biggest thing, was creating a plan and being proactive and then executing on that plan.
Yeah. So a couple of things come to mind. I'm recalling a recent interview with another sort of, what would be the word? She took over for the founding ED. And she's like, this is Wendy from Live Like Blue Foundation. She's like, I inherited, Christina, a spreadsheet with our donors. She's like, that's what I got. Right. And it's sort of this like very grassroots way of founding and running an organization. And then it's like, what is the next layer of getting us to 500 and beyond look like? And it's like, yeah, we got to create some systems. And often too, it's like, what is our actual plan? What is not only our fundraising plan? Because I think you had that, but it's like, how does that talk to and incorporate with the comms plan and the online plan and all of the things?
Yeah, because well, and I think to your other client that had that, when you, in a lot of organizations, especially smaller organizations, the minute decreases to be an issue the bigger you get. But for smaller organizations, a culture of philanthropy is critically important. And in a culture of philanthropy, it is a understanding of staff and the board and volunteers and your donors, everybody, that if we don't fundraise, if we don't generate revenue, we got nothing. No margin, no mission. We can't go do this wonderful thing that we do if we don't have money in the checking account. And as a nonprofit, that's how we get that money. We fundraise. And so it has to be do we really have to talk about fundraising at this board meeting? As opposed to, this is it's a standard on every agenda, every board meeting, it's there, people are engaged. And so it's this culture, right? You have to build this culture. And then the other piece of that is having on a fundraising, when I took over the organization, we were about a $300,000 budget, and we've grown this year. We are going to hit 800,000 this year, and the fundraising plan on an $800,000 to $1 million organization is radically different than on $300,000 budget organization. But here's the thing, Christina, is you have to create the changes, the plan ahead of the growth. You don't have growth and then, we're going to do things differently. That won't work. You have to do things differently now to get to the growth. And so, that could be training, or it could be, coaching, or it could be, hey, I have this fundraising plan that did X. Well, if you do this exact same thing next year as you did last year, then all things being equal, you're probably going to raise X. So if you want to raise X plus, then you need a plan that's plus, plus, plus.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, I'm picturing like a visual of going down a road, and it's like you have to pave the road for you to go down. Otherwise, you're just going to go down the other road, the other sidewalk. So, as speaking to like investing and figuring out the plan and what's going to take you to that next level, what is the benefit of having an outside collaborator, consultant, coach in that instance? Because I think it's easy for organizations to say, yes, we're with you, Nathan, and our board's going to figure this out, or we're just going to figure it out, or maybe we need to hire a new staff member or give so and so extra hours. What's the benefit of sometimes having an outside set of
Yeah,
eyes?
that's a great question. And I have definitive opinions on this, as I do in most things. So getting outside support or help or counsel, whatever you want to call it. Here's the thing with the executive directors, and especially in under $1 million, executive directors are, you wear every hat. You are the chief fundraiser, you're the chief program officer, you're the chief communications person, you're the chief mow the grass person, you're the chief volunteer coordinator. You play all of these roles. And typically an executive director, typically, not always, but typically they come up through the program side of the equation. So they have, what happens is executive director leaves for whatever reason, retires or takes another opportunity, whatever. And there's this hole. And trying to hire a new executive director for an organization is miserable for everybody. It's just, I have a word, but it's probably a family show, so I won't use that word. But it's not easy, all right? And so the easy thing for the board to say is, oh, there's Susie or there's Joe or whatever, they've been with the organization for years, and they know the organization and they know everybody and everybody loves them. So they make a great executive director. And so they offer the position and they take it because they're excited. And then they come in and they sit down in the chair for the first day and they're like, I don't know anything about finance. I don't know anything about building a budget. I don't know anything about social media. I don't know anything about fundraising. I don't know all of these things. All right. But the board says, okay, as they kind of, wipe their brow and say, we did our job. We got somebody in the executive director role, go forth and grow the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my story is a little different. I actually came up on the fundraising side. And so when I took my first executive director position, I had never run program at all. And I am still, and I had to change my tone because I used to say when I was on the fundraising side, I would actually say, I don't care about the program. Now I cared deeply for the outcomes of the program,
Sure.
the people that we helped and the changes and the changed lives and the saved lives. I cared deeply about that. But how the program functioned, honestly, Christina, I didn't give one hoot about that because I didn't understand it. And I didn't wake up every day and say, oh, how can we drive more benefit out of our program? It's just not how I thought. And to this day, I have to be aware of that. I have to make sure that I'm spending adequate time on our program development and that we're hitting the outcomes, we're hitting the deliverables that we say that we are. Same way with finance. I hate spreadsheets. I hate budgets. I hate all of it. But I'm the executive director, so that's my job. So I have to pay attention to that. And so the point of this rambling that I'm doing is if you are short, and every executive director has pluses and minuses, strengths and weaknesses. If you are weak in a certain area, sooner or later, that is going to hold you back from growth. It's going to hold the organization back. And so at some point, you're going to have to say, all right, either I need to get a consultant or a coach to come in and help me, or I'm going to have to hire somebody part-time to deal with that or full-time or whatever the case is. But you can't just ignore it because it will hold your organization back.
You literally just described an email that I got from the founding executive director. This happened like last month, saying, I'm stepping down, and this lovely human from programs is now our executive director. I literally just got this email and I was like, okay, all right. Like, and so, yeah. Like, it's so funny that you say
You talk
that.
about setting somebody up to fail.
Yeah.
And now I'm not saying, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying
and this
that
person
can't,
is awesome at their job in
yes.
programs, which they've rocked it at. However, this is like, I would imagine, going to be a complete, it's like putting on two left foot shoes. You know, they're going to be like, what is this doing?
And I'm not a board person. I'm not a person that says, oh, the board's not doing their job, or, oh, the board, whatever.
Yeah.
No, it's your job. You're the executive director. It's your job to make these decisions. It's your job to do these things. But in this case, that you just described, they probably don't know what their real job is.
Right.
They don't. And so it's going to be up to the board to say, you know what, we need to allocate funding for you to get some help, for you to
100%.
get coached up, for you to have somebody walk alongside of you.
Yeah.
And, in my coaching that I do, I had one that we just, for a year, we worked together, and it was the exact same thing. She was on the program side, the executive director. The executive director got walked out. So a little different thing. She got put in, and she realized, I have no idea what I'm doing. And so we got connected and we worked together, and she just made massive steps. Massive steps. And there comes a time where everybody, I use coaching. I know you use coaching, somebody to walk with us in things that we're weak in. So everybody needs that.
Yes, totally. I'm like, I got to send them an email. They need to talk to you. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about some of the successes we've had. I'm curious, where do you feel like FOTCOH would be had we not worked together? So had you said, we're going to figure this out in-house, or we're going to figure, I don't know, I'm sure there's 1,000 different ways you could have gone down this path, but like, what would have looked like? What's FOTCOH like today without our work together? Other than I would have totally missed all of our WhatsApp conversations.
I know. And a lot of our stuff has nothing to do even with work.
Totally.
I think the first thing that comes to my mind with that question is our newsletter.
Yeah.
And I get compliments on our newsletter all the time. All the time. Anytime I'm out talking to donors, anytime I'm out with groups of people that are insiders, that are FOTCOH, Friends of the Children of Haiti. FOTCOH is our acronym. If we're with FOTCOH insiders, almost 100% of the time, the newsletter comes up. And our newsletter, prior to us working together, it looked like volunteers put it together. We had volunteers put it together, and volunteers can only do so much.
And we are talking about like a printed, mailed piece. And so it was like, like a little,
And it looked like a little mom and pa organization newsletter.
It was very, very busy. So there was the design piece, and I was like, oh my God, this is going. And then there was the content piece, and both of them, it just needed the design piece. We've completely reimagined. We just started fresh. And then the content piece, and I know we've weaved that into like your direct mail, your appeals, and all of that, was just, how do we step up the authority and the expertise and the true impact of what you're doing? Because what you're doing is remarkable. But that wasn't there in the content.
No. And the big thing is, and whether you're fundraising or marketing or communications in your nonprofit, it's all about stories. It's all about telling stories. And that was one of the big changes we made in the content. Was we went from factual telling you what was happening or what happened to, here's this story. Here's this patient story. Here's the name. Here's a picture. Here's what happened. And we're not talking, 1,000-word stories. They're like, 100-word stories. I mean, they're short little things. And so that was, I think that was a big upgrade. The design, most people, and as executive directors, we put in hours agonizing over these newsletters and every word and, all of this stuff. And, people are going to look at the pictures. They're going to look at the captions under the pictures. They're going to look at
what's skim it.
Yeah, what's bolded, what's in different colors. They're gonna maybe skim your executive director corner
Yep.
that you write. They're gonna look at the PS and now you're real zealots, you're real ambassadors that love everything
Yep.
about your organization. Maybe they read every word, but that's not the majority. And so you've got to hit their attention in those spots where they're gonna look. And I think that was the biggest difference. And our going back to the design again, it looks good. The
Yep.
the colors are on our color palette. It looks good. It's professional. And I think for organizations, there's a point where you transfer from we're a mom and pa, operation, and everything's about saving a dollar. And we printed this on our own printer, and we had volunteers come in and fold it. And that's great for a $200,000 organization or $150,000 organization. But again, going back to, you have to change first to get the growth. If you want to grow to a $500,000 organization, then you have to look like a $500,000 organization, or else donors aren't going to support you at that level. So, and
I'm
it's,
s-
it doesn't mean that you spend, you know, thousands of dollars
yeah.
on every newsletter. We're not saying that, but look at the newsletter that comes from the biggest hospital in your community or the big universities. Look at what they're putting out compared to what you're putting out. Now, obviously, there's a cost difference there, and I'm not saying if you're $100,000 budget, you need to put out what the university of whatever state you're in does. But you've got to step it up if you want to grow.
I'm so glad you said that, because one of the things that we've done really well together and has made you more money is investing in, whether it's a fundraising tool, investing in, like you said, let's clean up the look and aesthetic of this. It doesn't mean we're paying a designer $10,000 to do it, but it's like, where is the small upgrades that we can make along the way, and being willing to do that. And sometimes I have organizations that come to me and it's like a race to the bottom. Like, we are so proud that we spend 2 cents on marketing throughout the year. And it's like, that's not a badge of honor, right?
No,
Because
no.
functionally, from the donor's point of view, like, you give me that mailed piece and it looks like crap, it looks like it's hard to read, I'm not reading it. You send me that email and I'm having to pinch to zoom in, or there's so much friction to make the donate, I'm not doing it, right? Don't be proud that you have the cheapest printer, the cheapest fundraising tool. Like, in fact, it's inhibiting people from donating to your organization or volunteering or whatever it is.
Okay, you just took one of my pet peeves and you just cranked me up on it. One of my pet peeves is this 30% overhead
Yep.
percentage that
Yep.
people talk about, that was created in like 1932 or whatever. And donors get fixated on it, and it's not as bad as it used to be. But I still hear it once in a while. And so I think nonprofits have this, oh, we have to be under this arbitrary number,
Yep.
and for admin cost, and the lower the ratio, the lower the percentage, the better it is. It's the wrong question. The question is your impact. What impact are you making? So if I wanted to bring FOTCOH's ratio down to 5%, oh, I could do it. I mean, I could bring that thing down to almost nothing. So, but what would we have to sacrifice? Well, we could not do an audit. I mean, that's expensive. We could not do that. So now I'd have no way to show donors that yes, your money is going to where we say it is, but I've cut my ratio down.
Sure.
I could cut you out.
Cut your entire comms plan.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
could go back to, we could do no social media, we could
Yep.
do no newsletter, and we could go back to sending like we used to before I came, to one appeal letter at the end of the year, and that's it.
Yep.
Okay, well, that would cut that ratio way down. So it's not about, I don't mean to be snarky, but it's not about the ratio, it's about output. And
Yep.
I have talked to donors, and most donors, vast majority of your donors, if you could say, hey, if I spend a little more money, then I would have more revenue to make a bigger impact, to serve more people better. Mr. and Mrs. Donor, which would you have? Would you rather have a little bit higher ratio and serve more people, or a much lower ratio and serve half the people that we are now? If you ask your donors that, I guarantee you they will take the bigger impact.
This is why we get along so well. Like this is it. Is it shouldn't be a badge of honor that you're like, great news, Mr. or Mrs. Donor. Our staff of 5 employees are getting paid just above the poverty line. So they're barely making ends meet. And aren't you so glad? Like, no. And
No.
FOTCOH employs more than 50 Haitians in Haiti run the clinic. It's like,
We do. Yep.
I want to make sure not only the stateside employees, the employees over there are paid well, right? That should be like the foundationally. And it
Right.
is about being willing to have that conversation with the donor of like, actually, let's rethink this whole overhead and why it's important that people are paid well. So thank you for that. All right, let's talk about, we're gonna wrap up here in a second. So
We're just getting going.
I know, we can keep going. So let's talk a little bit about what's next. Like, where do you see FOTCOH next, and what is the next layer of growth for your organization? Paint that picture.
Oh man, that's a great question. And I've been thinking about it. Actually, I just sat yesterday at Panera with our CFO, and we talked through this very question. So we're going to push 800 this year. Our next plateau is 1 million. That's our next step. And so our next investment, we're going to go a little heavier into grants. We are, and if you're listening to this podcast and you heard me say grants, that is not a panacea. That is not a, oh, we're going to get into grants, and all of a sudden, you have this big, huge, money just starts falling out of the sky. We started this process 4 years ago, and we now have the infrastructure built, and we have the groundwork ready to go, so that moving forward, we are going to start to receive, on a consistent basis. So it didn't happen overnight. So we're going to invest a little bit more heavily in that. That's one.
And before you invest heavily in grants, you have a core group of high impact donors that sort of allowed you to do that. Yeah.
And that's actually number 2.
Okay,
is we are going deeper into our major gift program. We have an awesome board, and we have a handful of our board members who are very good at major gift fundraising, and work hard at it. And so we've identified an additional group of donors that we are going to bring into the major donor process, that are going to go from maybe 1 call a year to more of a cultivation process, where we're doing major gifts moves management and intentionally working them into our one-on-one communication process and interaction. And then the other thing in that same topic would be, we have to go deeper with some of our already generous donors, and connecting the dots between transactional, even at the major gift level, less transactional, more personal. And so finding out what is the donor's real passion for giving? What are they trying to achieve through their philanthropic giving? And then connecting those dots of, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Donor, these are the 3 things that are really important to you. And here's how we meet that. Here's how we deliver that for you. And when you do that, you go from 3-figure gifts to 4-figure to 5 to 6. That is how you bump up and here's the thing, Christine, and I know you know this. You already have, if you're an executive director and you're listening, I'm telling you, you already have the money in your current donors. You don't need to go spend money. Yes, do we need an inflow of new donors? Yes, every organization needs that. I'm not saying that's not important. It is somewhat important. There needs to be a little bit of emphasis on that. But all the money you ever need for your organization is already in your donor base. You just have to go make the connections with those donors, find out what's important to them, and then show how your organization, the outcomes, how you're changing lives, how you're saving lives, how that connects to your donor's passion, and the money will follow.
Like, let that sink in because it's true. Like, let that sink in because it's true. They're right here. They're right there. You haven't asked, they haven't felt seen. They haven't felt engaged with, like, they exist. I'm so glad you said that. I'm thinking about my assistant putting together the quotes for this episode. I'm like, that's a quote. That's a quote. There's another quote. You had a lot of good ones.
Well,
Okay,
see,
but
here's the thing with your
yeah,
donors. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I did, but sorry. They're already giving. Those donors that you have that are in your donor file, they're giving those 4 and 5 and 6-figure gifts. They're just not giving them to you. They're giving them to
Yes.
other people. They're already doing it.
That's right.
And if they're not giving them to you, it's because you haven't done the work to get them to motivate them, to encourage them, to ask them to give to you.
Yeah, that's a solvable problem for sure. Right. Yeah, the best.
Duh.
Okay, you said something, but I want to make sure that you have to tell us a little more. You said my board, there's some really great fundraisers on my board, and I want to know, how did they become really great fundraisers?
Yeah,
Did
good
they
question.
just come to your board and say, I'm going to be a board member because I'm thinking of a few that I know personally? Did they come as natural, amazing fundraisers?
Nobody raised their hand and said, ooh, pick me. The smart kid in 5th grade that always answered all the questions that annoyed everybody else. Sorry if that was you.
No, I was in the back corner. You're good.
not
Don't call
making
me.
not making eye contact. So I have the best board. I've been doing this for 25 years, and this is the best board I've ever had. They are amazing. And we have 14 board members. Half come from the business world, half come from the medical world. We're a medical clinic, so we've got to have, the medical side is really important. But we worked really hard, and the board has worked with me on this over the last 6 years to bring in really high level, competent business people who think differently, who have different perspectives, different ideas, different skills. And so I have 4 or 5 that are not afraid to pick up the phone. And if I say, hey, this donor, just gave this gift, can you reach out to them and say thank you? The next thing I get back is send me the contact information. And then 3 days later, they've sent me the thing, done. This is what we talked about. And so a couple of things. If you have a board that it's not doing anything for you in that field, here's how you do it. A couple of easy steps. One is, don't expect your entire board to do it. Unless you've recruited them as fundraisers, that's specifically what we're asking you to do. They're not going to do it. They're just not. You didn't recruit them that way. So every board member that we're actually in the process of cultivating a couple of them now, and that was like within 3 minutes of the first conversation, is this position. We're expecting you to fundraise and to bring in this much money. That is right up front. And so if they're not interested in that, then they're not a fit for us. So if you didn't recruit your board members that way, don't expect them to all say, oh, you're going to start this initiative. Okay, yeah, I'll do that. It won't happen. But there's probably 1 or 2 that if you ask them specifically, individually, one-on-one, privately, not in front of everybody, they will probably say, yeah, I can help you. All right, so that's 1. Start with 1 or 2. 2 is make it all about thanking the donor. Don't ask them to go in and make a $100,000 ask. You ask them to, I would like for you to help me thank a donor for their giving, 1. And 2, I just want you to tell the story of why you're passionate about our organization. That's it. I want you to say thank you, and I want you to say why you're passionate. Well, if they're a board member, anybody can say thank you, and they can tell their own story. That's pretty simple. All right, that's 2. And then 3 is, after you have the interaction with the donor, whether it's on the phone or better face-to-face, but you can't always do face-to-face, Zoom, whatever, however you're going to do it. Then typically what you'll find is the board member will say, oh, well, that wasn't so hard, and that was actually kind of fun. And then it's like, okay, I've got another donor. Could you help me, 2 weeks from now? So then at the next board meeting or at a future board meeting, you have that board member relate their experience. Yeah, it was really fun. I said thank you, and then we talked about why I was passionate, and so then you've got other board members saying, "Oh, is that all it is?" Well,
Yep.
okay, I can do that. I can say thank you and tell my own story. That's how you start, as opposed to, yeah, I'm going to make a $5,000 ask next week, and I need somebody to go with me who's going to volunteer.
Yep.
Nobody's going to do that. So that's how you do it.
So smart. And it's like these little incremental
Little
pieces,
steps.
coaching them through it.
Yep.
And it was reminding me of what we did at the end of the year. So we sort of took, I'm going to say, those warm board members, and then we opened it up to the whole board
Yep.
and said, who's going to help us fundraise, right? We had a container of a start date and an end date, and I helped you create this of like this fundraising campaign online. And then the other piece that is similar but a little different to what you just said is we gave them a toolkit, which was like, how do I make this the easiest thing possible? And the most fun outcome, aside from the money raised, which was so fun, and the new donors that came in, which was so fun, was the one board member that hit reply all on a thread to the other board members that just said, this was so easy. All I did was post once, and I think he had, $5,000 come in that day or something. And it was like that endorsement helped get people.
Yeah.
Oh, we can do this too.
So, and another thing on your board, and it doesn't make any difference if it's the the grandma who's on your board, who's been on the board for 20 years, and she's the most wonderful, amazing person, and everybody loves her, and she loves the organization, whether you're talking about her or if you're talking about the CEO of a $500 million company. They are terrified to fundraise. I don't care who they are. I have one board member now who came in the door and said, I'm going to help you do this, and I will do this. And this guy, he is one of the best major gift fundraisers I've ever been around. And he has no clue what he's doing. So but he had passion, and he had the desire to do it. And so we've coached him, and we've worked with him. And he's the only one in 25 years who came in and said, I will help you do this. Yeah. The rest are terrified. And I don't care who they are. I'm telling you, Christina, you take the CEO of $1 billion company can go in and speak to 10,000 people and can lead all of these things and do all of these things. And if you say, could you help me ask a donor for a gift? You will see fear creep into their eyes. So don't ask them to do that. Ask them to help you say thank you to donors and tell their own story. That's if you try to get them to do any more than that at the get-go, they're
done. Yeah, totally. Yep. Okay, so we ask every guest on the podcast, what is one thought that you like to think on purpose? So maybe this is an affirmation, maybe this is a quote you heard. What is something that kind of helps keep you motivated as you're doing this work?
I would say, and this, you have to let me explain this, but I would say what comes into my mind the most is irrational confidence. And by that, I mean, not irrational confidence says, I don't care what the situation is. I don't care what's happened. I know I have confidence in my own ability. I have confidence that I can figure it out. Now, that doesn't mean that I right off the bat, I know the answer. It doesn't mean that I know the right direction. I don't know the right step all the time, immediately right off the bat, but I have confidence that I'll figure it out. And so that means being able to say confidently, you know what, that's a great question. I don't know the answer. Or this has happened. And then, as the executive director, something happens. Well, then you can visibly see everybody's head turn towards you because they're waiting for you to make a decision or answer. And it's having the confidence to say, yeah, I don't know what that is, but give me an hour, give me a half a day, give me a day, give me a week, and I'll figure it out. And so the irrational confidence is knowing, trusting yourself that you will come up with a solution, come up with a plan. And even if it's not the exact right plan or the most efficient way or the most effective way, it's that you're leading and saying, all right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do step
That's right.
one, step two, step three. And if we get to step two and realize step three is not right, then we're gonna change that and get it. We're gonna get it right. But that's what I remind myself the most is be confident, know that you figure it out,
Yep.
and just trust yourself that eventually I'll get there.
That's so good. I think so many founders and leaders get stuck in the loop of going to bat for why it's not working or why it's not going to work instead of going to bat for what if this works? Next step. What's the next best step? Next best step. So I love that. That's perfect. So good.
Yeah. And I make mistakes. Oh my gosh, I make mistakes all the time. I screw things up. I do things wrong. So it's not that you're perfect and that you're going to get it right every time, because we all mess it up. It's just saying, okay, well,
onward.
Right.
What's
it? I make mistakes all the time, and it's like, all right, well, that didn't work. So what are we going to do instead of that? So,
but at least it's pushing, it's moving your organization, it's moving you as a leader forward when you have that attitude. So I
you
get
can't
it.
stand still. You can't sit still. You can't do nothing. That is the worst. You've got to take action. You got to move.
So, okay. Thank you. Thank you. I've loved this conversation. I knew that everybody would get some major gifts coaching out of it. I didn't know they would get board coaching. So this has been extra fun for that. How can people connect with you? Tell us about your podcast and all the things.
Yeah, we do. I have a podcast called The Practice of Nonprofit Leadership. I do have a co-host, Tim Barnes, and Tim is a leader in an organization called the International Association for Refugees. And so he's doing refugee work globally. And we've been longtime friends, and we put this podcast together, and it's really designed for executive directors of smaller organizations, less than 1 million for the most part, but a lot of our listeners are like way smaller than that. And we focus on fundraising, on leadership, on governance. And Christina, you've been a wonderful guest of ours a few times, and so we talk about marketing, and it is a place for executive directors to come together to learn. And we're starting a new membership program where we're going to be doing some online office hours where people could come in and hang out with us and ask questions and go in a little deeper. And so, so that's the Practice of Nonprofit Leadership. That's my podcast, and would love to have you check it out.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for today. It's been, as always, so fun.
It's been fun. Thanks.